The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. About 4.5 billion years ago, Earth's Hadean eon was undergoing significant geological and chemical changes. Evidence suggests the Earth's first crust was forming and the beginnings of life were starting to line up. But it took another 3.8 billion years for biological life to start to emerge, and that was shortly after the formation of the oceans. Very turbulent time in Earth's history, and the evidence suggests that biological intelligence only emerged a few million years ago. If you consider everything that had to happen to allow for human life to emerge from the biological soup, well, the odds against it ever happening are astronomical, says Dr. Ali Victor Binazir, the author of Are You a Miracle? On the Probability of You Being Born, and 5 Hidden Love Questions. Now add in the odds of you being born you, not your brother, not your sister, not your cousin. Binazir says when you factor in the 155,000 generations of your family that preceded you, the odds are just mind-boggling against you ever being born you. In other words, you are a miracle. I invited Dr. Ali Victor Binazir to join me for a conversation that matters about embracing the miracle and magic of being you. Dr. Binazir, welcome. It really is a miracle to be born you, isn't it?
Well, the odds of that happening are so infinitesimal that it should rightly blow our minds. But most of us really don't think that way. Most of us think that, oh, here I am and this is my life. But how'd you end up here on this planet that seems to provide the right conditions for life in this particular solar system and in this particular incarnation, as the Buddha used to call it, this one precious incarnation?
It is a precious incarnation, and I think that once you start to recognize what the odds against it are, were remarkable. You know, in my introduction, I talk about going all the way back to the formation of Earth itself and all the elements that had to come together, leading to some kind of the emergence of biological life and then intelligent biological life. And Brian Cox, the noted physicist from Manchester University, says we're probably the only species there is, period, anywhere, that is intelligent biological life. And so that adds even more to the majestic nature of what a miracle we are.
Absolutely. And the Buddha, in order to convey to his followers how incredibly rare this event is, he said the probability of you being here incarnated as you is the same as there being one life ring thrown in all of the oceans of the world, and there being exactly one turtle in all of the oceans of the world, and that turtle surfacing one time and having his head pop out of that one life preserver. So that is a tiny number, and people have estimated around 1 in 400 trillion. But I wondered, is that really correct? Can we do a little back of the envelope calculation to figure out what that real number is?
What did you discover?
Well, so in order to be sitting here right now before you, a bunch of things had to happen, not the least of which was that my mom had to meet my dad. It had to be those exact two people. So what are the chances of your parents meeting each other and having a kid who lives long enough to be you? Well, you go back to when our parents were alive, let's say 40, 50 years ago. Population of the Earth was half of what it is now. So that was around 4 billion people, and half are male, half are female. And so roughly you can calculate that, say, in a lifetime of going out, meeting humans, maybe meet 10,000 people. So out of that 2 billion people, that narrows it down to 1 in 2,000 or so, 1 in 20,000, sorry. And so the probability of your parents meeting roughly in the neighborhood of 1 to 20,000, 1 in 100,000, probably being very, very optimistic there.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. That's the beginning of it, but your parents have to have been the right age. They have to have been uh, able to reproduce. And then there's
Absolutely.
the whole reproductive process itself, which is, um, it is complex as well.
Yeah, that's when stuff gets a little tricky because guess what? In addition to all the improbability of that particular man and woman meeting amongst a sea of 4 billion people, now you've got this challenge where the right sperm has to meet the right egg. And that's an incredibly unlikely event because, every time a man actually has intercourse with a woman, and there's about 100 million sperm that are set after 20,000 or so eggs. But it has to be the exact right sperm and the exact right egg. So it's all the eggs and all the sperm in the entire lifetime of someone that we're talking about here. So that number starts getting very big, if I may look at my notes just so I can get it right. So you've got around 4 trillion sperm that a man makes in his reproductive lifetime that correspond to the time during which a man and woman are together and can actually bear children. And there are about 100,000 eggs that an adult woman has that are viable. So you got to multiply those probabilities. So that ends up being 1 in 400 quadrillion. So the number is already getting very, very large here, way beyond just 400 trillion, which the Buddha said. And then you multiply that 1 in 400 quadrillion by the prior probability of 1 in 4 million, which was the probability of mom meeting dad and then having kids. And that ends up being a very large number, 1.6 times 10 to the 24th. So these numbers, we're going to use exponentials now because after trillion, who knows, in quadrillion, who knows what comes. So 1.6 times 10 to the 24, that's a pretty large number. So the total number of atoms in a spoonful of sugar is around that. And that's a lot.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm realizing that if it wasn't that exact sperm and that
Right.
exact egg, then
Right.
you wouldn't be you. It's why
Right.
your brother or sister are different than you,
Ex
even though you had the same parents.
Exactly. And of course, now you have to take into account that, wait a sec, this has to be true of every single one of your ancestors. For every one of them, I mean, that's basically like your mom and your dad. Each one of these people had to be born, stay long enough to have at least one kid, who then went on to have kids of their own. And and this chain goes back all the way to the primordial slime. Otherwise, none of this happens. If one of your great 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 grandmas got brained by a rock, falling down, that's the end of that. Saber-toothed cat eats him, that's the end of the line. And yet none of that happened. So now we have to take into account the entire lineage of you, plus the probability of everybody in that lineage living long enough to have at least one kid. So let's say, the hominins have been around for 3 million years, generations around 20 years. That's 150,000 generations. Okay, so now you have to calculate each one of those people in those generations living long enough to have a kid, right? So let's say 50%, which is extremely generous, right? But then you also have to figure out what are the total number of your ancestors. And that number gets really crazy really fast because, you start out with, okay, you got 2 parents, then you got 4 grandparents, 8 great grandparents, 16 great 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 grandparents, and this goes on 32, 64, 128. And the funny thing is, if you go back just 36 generations, not 150,000 generations, just 36 generations, you have, by this calculation, more ancestors than there are people who have ever lived in the history of the earth. That number starts exceeding the 108 billion, which is the upper limit of what people estimate is the total number of people who've ever lived. So if that's the case, 36 generations, what about the rest of it? How many ancestors have you actually had? So this is where I fudge it a little bit and I say, look, you've had around 10 million ancestors because beyond those 36 generations, everybody starts being related to each other or even the same person. So then that is the number that we have to now multiply by this number for a single generation, making it with the right egg and the right sperm. And that's when the numbers get absolutely staggering beyond anything you've ever imagined.
Well, I'm going to throw in just one other little sidebar here. The research demonstrates that we, especially anybody who has European or maybe Western Asian ancestry, that there was interbreeding with Neanderthals. And so there's a bit of a calculation that comes into there too. It is mind-boggling. But I think the point of it is that once you start to embrace this, you realize you've been given a gift. You've been given a gift that probably doesn't exist anywhere else in the universe. And so what responsibility do we then have to make the most of this gift that we've been given?
That's absolutely right, Stu. And, as we are sitting here and going about our days, having our Egg McMuffins and, commuting to work and watching TV, we think, oh, little old me, I don't even matter. I don't even count there. But the fact of the matter is we are all interconnected and everybody is connected to everybody else in this infinite web of basically support. And being these hypersocial creatures, everybody is a part of a net. Nobody is this point mass floating in space. And you matter because you've got 150,000 generations of ancestors before you saying, hey, look, you're the one who made it. You go. And then the thousands of generations of offspring that come after you. And then all the interconnections between the people you already know. And the fact that this Earth right here is an incredibly unlikely place in the entire universe that has spawned life because of the right temperature, the right humidity, the right mix of gases in the atmosphere, the right distance from the sun, the right shielding from solar winds and cosmic rays because of the magnetic field of the Earth. These are things that we don't really think about, but the fact that life exists at all over here is an insane miracle. And just so I can share with the audience some comparables. So the final number we come up with, which is probably a gross underestimate because I don't even count all the generations before the hominins, right? There's an unbroken line between the first single-celled organism and us. The primordial slime, that's our great to the 2 millionth power ancestor. And all those things, all the lizards, all the fish, everything is an unbroken line that leads to us. So the actual number is actually even more ridiculous than this. But with all the stuff that I mentioned, the probability of you being you here sitting right now and listening to this is 1 in 10 to the 240 millionth power. And just to get a sense of what that is, the total number of atoms on planet Earth is 10 to the 50th. The total number of particles in the universe is 10 to the 80th. This number is 1 in 10 to the 240 millionth. So, and to have an actual real world event associated with that. Imagine that you had everybody in Europe, which is roughly 800 million people, have a coin flip, right? And the deal is that in order for you to exist, they all flip the coin and every single person has to come up heads. If even one of them comes up tails, you don't exist. That is the probability of you existing. 800 million coin flips that miraculously somehow all did turn up heads because here you are.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So you mentioned you matter. And I've encountered people who go, we don't matter one bit. We're just this one little speck of dust in the universe. But, going back to Brian Cox, he goes, if we are the only intelligent biological beings in the universe, we're the only ones who can give meaning to what this experience is and what the universe is. We actually all have a tremendous responsibility to make the most of what this gift is that we've been given. And it's our responsibility to use that because Once we do, we as a mass of energy move energy around us. And it starts to unfold in ways that we can never imagine. The same way, if you go back 155,000 generations down your lineage, none of those people had any idea that they were going to be responsible for you or me having this conversation through some mediated environment. But what they did had to happen exactly the way that it did, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this.
That is absolutely true, Stu. And everything that we do ripples out through the universe. Everything that you say, every breath that you take, excuse me, everything is having an effect. So it would be, a terrible insult to the universe that brought us to this point against these astonishing odds, 1 in 200, 1 in 10 to the 240 million, to say, none of this matters. I'm just hanging out here. At the same time, I don't want to overburden people with the idea that, okay, you're here, you gotta do something good, you gotta earn your keep. Just the fact that you are here is miracle enough. And if we start there, that's the point from which people can really bloom, when they feel that, hey, I am enough and I am already a miracle, as opposed to, I'm just, little nobody here hanging out. Which one is more empowering? Take whatever feels better to you and use that. And that's partially why I wrote this piece, to get people to realize, look, I don't care if you're depressed out there. I don't care if you're unemployed. I don't care if you think, you're not good enough. This has to be true. Everything that we just discussed is absolutely true. The fact that 150,000 generations of our ancestors are standing behind us saying, go, go, go. The fact that, we live in this paradise in a very hostile, unfriendly universe full of cosmic rays and metal melting heat and all kinds of things that would kill you if you try to say, go to Mars. It's a very, very inhospitable place to be. Right here is pretty awesome, and we get to be here, and also to be at the tail end of 3.8 billion years of life's evolution, to have the faculties to appreciate it. Now, that is the miracle, that we are now conscious enough to be able to look at the universe that created us and say, wow, this whole thing is there, and therefore I am here.
So I'd like to read a little something for you that comes from Pablo Casals, the great Spanish cellist. He wrote a piece called A Salute to Life. Now, I've just cherry-picked a little bit here, but I want to get to, your Marvelous Mondays and Thankful Thursdays and so on in just a moment. But let me read this, and then we can jump to that. Pablo Casals said, on my last birthday, I was 93 years old. Age is a relative matter. If you continue to work and to absorb the beauty in the world about you, you find that age does not necessarily mean getting old. In spite of my age, I have not lost my zest for life. So how does one explain this? Each day I am reborn. Each day I must begin again. Each second we live in a new and unique moment of the universe, a moment that never was before and never will be again. And what do we teach our children? We teach them that 2 and 2 make 4 and Paris is the capital of France. When will we also teach them what they are? We should say to them, do you know what you are? You are a marvel. You are unique. In all of the world, there is no other child exactly like you. In the millions of years that have passed, there has never been another child like you. And look at your body. What a wonder it is. Your arms, your legs, your cunning fingers, the way you move. You have the capacity for anything. And I would like to, put it out there. It sure would be nice if we were making sure that children felt that way about themselves.
That is a great place to start, and it is absolutely true. And in the book that you mentioned, the 5 Hidden Love Questions, I have these 9 different stories of you, each one of them pointing to the miraculous nature of being. And one of them is that, hey, if you're sitting there listening to this, you are 37 trillion cells that started out as a single cell. That union of the sperm and the egg resulted in many, many doublings that lead to 37 trillion cells that get along, that breathe you even as you are asleep and unconscious. Your heart keeps beating all throughout the day, 86,400 times every day on average, a couple of billion times in your lifetime. And it all works without your conscious interference. This is a gift, which means that you, in turn, are a gift. And one of my readers sent me a tattoo of that number, the probability of existing, because he was depressed. And when he read this, it was like, oh, wow, okay. I don't even, this is reason enough to live because holy cow, we've been handed this miracle. And what a terrible squandering of the miracle would be if I didn't appreciate for what it is. And every child, every former child, which is basically every grown-up, should remember that. It's very easy for us to look at an infant and say, "Oh, wow, look at this miraculous being. Look at these 10 toes and 10 fingers and the moving mouth, and it's so cute, and these blue eyes." And people forget that every single one of us was that miraculous child. And how is a person who's been crossing streets and not getting run over for 30, 40 years less miraculous than a baby who hasn't had any of these experiences? And you picked up your native tongue just by grabbing onto strands of sound wafting through the air from your parents. You reconstructed the entire English language and all its unreason and complication, and figured out how to do all these things, including, tune into this show or type on a computer. Pretty amazing. So if you start with amazing, it's only up from there.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So let's quickly go over sort of your 5 days of the week that you say, here are ways that you can celebrate. And let's start with your Magnanimous Mondays. Tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll go on to Tremendous Tuesdays.
I love it. So, Magnanimous Mondays. So, the idea is in order for people to do the things that they say they want to do, it really helps to have this thing called an implementation intention, as in a time and a place to do the thing, right? So, for example, if you want to be a generous person, okay, when's a good time for generosity? Hey, I know, let's stick it on the calendar. So I call Mondays Magnanimous Mondays because that's the day when you can practice being generous. And how can you be generous? Well, you could hand out dollar bills to people, or you could just go up and give them a gift of appreciation. It's like, hey, I really appreciate what you did with this show, Stu. That was amazing. Or, hey, great outfit you've put together. The simplest thing. Even that has a massive effect that people don't realize, and that is power that you have. So if you're able to give that kind of love and appreciation to other people, well, we can't give stuff that we don't have. So guess what? You are probably full of love and just waiting to give it away.
So what do you mean by Tremendous Tuesdays?
So Tremendous Tuesdays. Okay, can we edit this later on? Because I'm kind of forgetting what Tremendous Tuesdays was all about. Okay, good. I think that was just feeling the magnificence of you. What was Tremendous Tuesdays? Let me find it.
Yep.
Hold on. Okay, I got it. Okay. Okay. So Tremendous Tuesdays are all about you realizing that, hey, you have power, no matter where you are, where you're sitting, where you think you are in the hierarchical structure of humanity. You have power. And the power that you have is to be the buyer, be the one who is discerning as to whether this relationship is good enough for you, this meal is good enough for you, whether this person that you're speaking with is somebody who is good for you. And this is discernment. This is exercising good judgment and also being a little picky about what your life experience is, because that's how you can live a better life, as opposed to settling for what you can get. So I urge you to be a little more discriminating in your choices, especially when it comes to the things that elevate you and support you in your endeavors to thrive and flourish.
There was one, Wise Wednesdays. Let's deal with that one, and then we're going to have to wrap up because we're going to run out of time before we get into Thursday and Friday. But I just think that your list is remarkable, and it gives an appreciation for making sure that we are fully engaged in our lives.
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of Wise Wednesdays because Wise Wednesdays involves a practice that is so easy, yet not necessarily, it's simple, but not necessarily easy because people forget that you have the power to be a great listener. So Wise Wednesdays corresponds to the third of the five hidden love questions, which is, am I safe? Because massive studies done by Google have shown that people thrive best in circumstances where they feel psychologically safe, where they feel as if they can express themselves. And that's how their mind frees up to come up with new ideas and be an even bigger contribution to the world. So Wise Wednesdays, we encourage you to be that person who provides psychological safety and you become the chief listening officer of the world. You are listening to people, you're bringing out the best in them, and thereby enriching your surroundings, as well as recognizing that this is also something that feeds and nourishes you by being a great listener.
I think, of course, when we appreciate the greatest gift of all is life itself. And I don't know, I came across this from David Viscott, and I know that you have a version about it, about realizing your potential. And he says, the purpose of life is to discover your gift. The work of life is to develop it. And the meaning of life is to give your gift away. It's quite an extraordinary thing, isn't it? To be able to say, yeah, I'm going to embrace this and I'm going to be a contributor as well as a beneficiary.
I couldn't put it better myself, Stu, and thank you for that reference. I didn't know he'd come up with that too. But as far as I can tell, that seems to be what we're here to do. And you are a gift. Everybody is a gift. And this life that we've been given is a gift. So what makes a gift is the act of circulation, of keeping that energy moving. There's a great book called The Gift, and it talks about how the whole purpose of a gift is to keep on moving that energy around. So, through 150,000 generations of your ancestors, this gift has been transmitted to you. Now you have a chance to transmit that gift to other people of appreciation, of thriving and flourishing, of providing psychological safety, of being the best version of you, which is the version that is in service to everyone around you.
It's my understanding that Aristotle said the responsibility of a fully functioning human being is to realize their potential, because a failure to do so is not a loss just to them, but it's a loss to all of society. And I think that the work that you have done is a really wonderful motivator to remind us that go out and be the best you, not the best somebody else, but be the best you that you can be, because what you do matters.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Stu, for having me.